Okay, welcome. My name is Kristiana. I have Emily with me today. We work at VISIONALITY. Emily is the founder. I am our senior project manager. We are a small but very mighty consulting company in Santa Barbara and Ventura County. We serve nonprofits that are going through phases of exciting growth. Basically, what we wanted to do with this series, Building Forward, is we all survived our very first pandemic. Fingers crossed we all survive. And so we are basically using this as an opportunity to share all of the lessons that we learned by working with our clients in order to help kind of everybody move forward out of this differently. And we called it Building Forward because we don't want to just build back to what we were before. We actually want to make things better than they were prior to that. So our shtick today is that we're going to be doing this within 25 minutes of presentation. If you have questions, we'll take your questions at the end. If you don't have questions, you will be on your day in 25 minutes. But with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to ask Emily to go ahead and start her timer.
All right.
And we are off. Emily, so today we're going to talk about income stream diversification.
Oh,
why is this important?
Oh boy, I love this so much. People will fight me on this. However, I firmly believe that nonprofits are businesses and the product that they manufacture and sell is social change. And just like any healthy business, we need to have income diversification. If some pipeline dries up, we've got something else to get us through. And so for the exact same reason, income diversification is really important in the nonprofit space. And
it's really funny because I look at income diversification from like a savings standpoint of like, don't put all your eggs in one basket. But the same thing is like when you're saving for retirement or saving for anything, you don't want to put all your money into one area because like, what if the stock market tanks or what if this goes bad? Or so it's like you want to make sure that you're spread around, not thin, but that you actually have like robust like income in various areas. So it's like finding a $20 bill in your pocket, right? Like, yes, my pants could become an income stream if I'm really good at stashing 20s in them. But when we talk about income stream diversification, it really is because like having income coming in across multiple revenue streams is going to make your company and your organization much healthier. Back to finishing your thoughts on that.
Well, one thing that has really concerned me in the past, and I saw this with one organization that we worked with, we had our largest funder start to make strategic decisions on behalf of the organization. And that is really, really dangerous when you become so dependent on one person or one grant or on one corporate sponsor. The power dynamic gets really thrown off in an unhealthy way, and they can start to leverage that pressure to make strategic decisions or programmatic decisions that could be in line with their own personal mission, vision, values, but may not be truly in the best interest of the health of the organization or the population that you serve. So like just for one simple reason, that's a scary place to be, to have, the person putting food on your table starting to make strategic decisions that may not be in line with the true mission, vision, values of the organization or what the board wants to do. And so,
yeah. And I want to jump up into that is a couple of the clients that we took on this year, we actually saw a lot of organizations that started to work with us for this exact reason. They were really concerned about the amount of grants coming in. One organization in particular had a lot of federal grants coming in. And so when you're at a federal grant level, your funding, depending on what your area of service is kind of dependent on who sits in the presidential office, as scary as that is. And so if their values don't align with your organizational values, their funding is not going to help, is not going to be supporting, like, is not going to be there compared to like if somebody else was in office that has a more liberal agenda or cares about human rights. And so I think that that's another really important thing too, is depending on your income, where your income is coming from, just like you said, it can really impact like what you're able to do or how you're able to execute your mission, because again, their mission, vision, values might be like 180 degrees in the opposite direction or even on another planet. Another thing that I wanted to talk about with that is just, kind of similar to what you were saying from like a business standpoint. But like we have also seen another organization that has about 70% of its annual revenue coming in from about 7 to 10 donors. And that's really scary too, because if that donor passes away and you're not in their will, like that's a significant amount of money that you then have to like scramble to find on an annual basis, or just like similar to what you were just saying, like their values may suddenly change, and like their funding values may suddenly change, and they may either wish to place that on you or not. And then there's actually something kind of on the opposite end of this that I wanted to talk about as well, is how organizations go chasing money for the wrong reasons, because especially grants. Like, so for instance, and we normally see this with grants, is they will go after a grant that isn't really aligned with their mission, but it has like a sliver Venn diagram overlap. And so all of a sudden they're spreading their mission thin to go after money because they need the cash. So they're going to like rearrange everything else because they need the cash, instead of like going after a grant or going after a funder or an individual donor that actually has that alignment of mission, vision, values. So you end up going after this grant and this grant and this grant, and your mission is now spread so thin that it doesn't look like your mission anymore.
Well, and then you're spending so much time building new programs or tweaking existing programs to fit within the parameters of those grants, which increases your overhead expenses because you're redesigning or building new programs. And then we see so many organizations who get in this cycle where they built this program to meet a grant, but the grant only funds a year or 3 years if you're lucky. If you are lucky, that foundation is starting to evolve and is starting to do more like long-term grants. But now you're left with this program that you don't have funding for. And right. So, yeah.
So basically that's why it's important to have income stream diversification. Now we're going to talk about how to make that happen.
Yes. Kristiana,
we're spicy today. It's been a long week.
Can you think of any downsides to revenue diversification?
I would say only if you're going after either funds from areas that don't align with your mission, or if you spend too much time because you think that it's shiny object syndrome, right? Like people, I think that's really what it is. So if people get shiny object syndrome, like with income stream diversification, they're going to go after all the wrong things instead of building on what they're currently doing or looking at like income streams that are adjacent to what they're doing to build on.
And
so
I think we see shiny object syndrome, especially with that elusive $1 million gift. Or if I could just talk to Oprah. We had one client who just needed to talk to Lady Gaga's agent and they were going to get $1 million. So we see that, and then like those grants programs where, you get that subscription to Grant Station or whatever, and you just start seeing all those dollar signs and, oh, we could do this and, oh, we could do that. And it just really.
I see a lot of people going after like text to give when they don't even have an email program in place. I'm like, you gotta walk before you can run, and you gotta crawl before you can walk. So don't, and it's like a house, right? Like have the foundation strong before you add an addition. Like don't try to build the third story while like you're still waiting for the cement to settle on the foundation.
Yeah, we've seen so much of that, of the siren song of the GoFundMe, and and yes, trying to put the sparkle on before you even have the foundation laid. And so sort of taking a step back and really analyzing your entire revenue portfolio and addressing, what are you doing great? Is there any opportunity to make it 5% better, 10% better? So just get a little bit more out of that existing asset. What are you doing, but you could really do it better? And then what are you not doing at all, but you could start? And our big takeaway on that, when you're assessing all of the possibilities of revenue diversification, is don't build a wildly complex system. Don't go nuts on the thing. Start small, start simple, and just start to chunk away at it. And this really is like planting a tree. You're income diversification is not going to bear fruit in the first year probably. And so pitch it to your board as planting a tree. We're planting institutional stability and sustainability, and we're going to do this for the long term, not because we're going to make, you know, $100,000 in text to give this month.
Yeah, and I think that that is always a really hard thing to balance, because boards and executives are always really concerned about meeting the bottom line for that year. And so it's making sure that that is, you know, still done. But you also have to be looking 5-10 years down the road. If you want your organization to grow, you do have to be able to grow your budget in a very sustainable way. And I think sustainable is the really hard word for a lot of organizations to kind of like grab their heads around, because sustainable means consistent, stable, predictable. And it takes a lot of work to do that. You know, just like you were using your tree analogy there a second ago, like in order to bear fruit in 5 years, like you've got to tend to that thing. You got to give it water. You've got to make sure it's got fertilizer. You got to like sweet talk to it. Like, you know, the whole plant talking thing's a thing. But it requires a lot of work before you can actually bear the fruit out of it. And a lot of boards are, and even, you know, fundraisers have a very short attention span when it comes to when they need a fundraise by. But also this tends to very often, and this, some things will always show up in these talks, and this is one theme. The high turnover rate of fundraisers also makes it really hard for them to fundraise, because I think it takes about 4 to 5 years for a good new program to actually take root and for it to actually bear fruit. And if the vast majority of fundraisers are only staying on for like 2 to 3 years at like max,
you're
like,
lucky.
The full benefit of it. So I do want to talk about, because one of the things that you had talked about a minute ago was how to do the things that you're doing better. So let's kind of dig into that a little bit, because I think people, you know, it's shiny object syndrome. We want like, oh, we don't think that this is working, so let's like not do it, but let's go do this other thing. However, from a high ROI fundraising perspective, there is a lot of value in looking at what you're already doing and kind of squeezing a little bit more out of that. So what are things that we can look at from like an annual giving or an annual program basis that we might be able to do a better job at?
My favorite word is automate. Automate, automate, automate. You know, what is there a piece of technology like, so we use Zapier on our team to automate small tasks. Now, the downside to Zapier is it's going to add a software cost to your budget, which could make your board upset. However, the amount of time that you're going to save on the staff expense side can really grow once you lean into those kinds of systems. So can you build systems within your existing revenue streams to decrease the work? And maybe that's decreasing staff time. So of course, then they could spend time building your revenue streams or whatever, but it may also be adjusting the way you utilize your volunteers. So automate, automate.
Give us an example from Zapier, actually. There's a couple of things that we use it for that I think are really relatable to what nonprofits can be using it for on a regular basis.
Yeah, so when we're doing events with our clients, every 10 seconds, they want an updated registration list. And so you can build, it's called a Zap. You can build a Zap that anytime you get a registration on whatever program it is, it automatically puts it into a Google Doc or a Google Sheet. And so that, number one, saves our staff's time from having to pull that report, copy, paste, you know, remove the duplicates, whatever. And it also removes the time, like there's that interaction time too of the client needs to think about it and worry about it and request it. So that takes time and energy. Then our team needs to pull it and format it and make it nice and write a nice email. Hey, Kristiana, thanks so much. Your, you know, thing is attached. And it just makes it like at the moment. And it's such a small thing, but it really pays dividends because a lot of small things add up to some big things.
Exactly. So no, thank you for sharing that. I wanted to make sure we gave an example with that too.
Well, and there are other things too that you can do, like make your emails program and your website talk to your fundraising program. Mm-hmm. And so looking for ways to integrate your different systems so that you don't need to do manual things. One thing I need to figure out, how do I make everyone who registers for these webinars automatically pop into Constant Contact? I think that's what I'll be working on this week. So like just those like little actions, and once you kind of clear out that debris, you have room to start building larger programs.
Yeah, and I think so often people think the solution to this is to get an assistant or to get like, you know, a development assistant more often than not, but nobody can afford a development assistant, but they could afford a piece of software, because I think we pay like $25 a month or something for that. And if this piece of software is literally pulling out like hours,
1 hour, if we save 1 hour a month,
right, it's a lot,
more than
it adds up. So we highly recommend that. So let's go on to the next one, which is, you know, improving, because you like automating. Where are we on time?
10 minutes left.
Excellent. So you like automating, and I really like looking at what you've already been doing and how can you do it better. My favorite thing to actually look at is end of year campaigns and mid-year campaigns. I am really tired of seeing just letters go out, and I have no idea why organizations send just a letter to ask for money still. Mostly because like I like pretty pictures, and maybe I just don't like reading that much anymore. So when you're reading this like 2-page, very dense thing, like my interest gets lost really quick, and you have to assemble all these things. So like, what are you doing with your campaigns that you can actually do better? Like, so we redid an end of year campaign for one of our clients this past year. And we turned basically their end of year letter into a catalog, essentially, of their services. And so we put like what the item was, how much it cost to fund it, and a little description and picture. And we ended up raising like almost 2 times as much as they normally raise at the end of the year, because we just took some time to rethink what they did with their end of year campaign. With that, I also think that like once you're rethinking your campaign, like your actual like hard copy campaigns, and I'm still a fan of hard copy campaigns when they're done well, how are you doing it digitally? Like, are you doing it in a way that makes sense and complements? Because I think that that's another thing that people like really lose sight of, is like they send out their end of year campaign, but then they don't talk about it on social or and so those two things really need to talk to each other. And also, whenever we do a print piece, we do a couple of email pieces to support the print piece. It's very classic advertising. You want it, you know, when we talk about like multi-channel marketing, this is kind of what we need. Like, you have your one campaign theme for your end of year campaign. It goes out through your letter or your newly revamped end of year piece. Call it a piece. You'll spend more time on it. What are you doing on it from an email standpoint? What are you doing on it from a like print standpoint? What are you doing on it from a social standpoint? Because then you're now giving one piece 3+ channels for it to be seen and actually like acted upon. Well, and so it's not a massive investment, because you're already going to do an end of year campaign, right?
Well, so that was my point. That feels like, you know, triple the work, but in when we develop these for our clients, the work is sitting down and figuring out what the heck are we going to say, and how are we going to present it, and what's our voice right now, and you know, what are the nuances based on the, you know, environment outside that we need to communicate to our donors and prospects. So it feels like you're tripling the work, but really it's just taking that hard work that you already did and mildly adjusting it to put it into these different channels. And my favorite word, automate. So we use a program called Hootsuite for our clients. And it really enables you to like plan out and lay out your social campaigns in line with everything else that you do. And the one caveat to Hootsuite is, if you're going to automate anything, make a list of the things that you automate, because if something goes terribly sideways in the world, you need to immediately pull everything that was automated. So we've seen that, unfortunately, a lot, where, you know, we love to automate, you get things rolling, you don't have to think about it as much, you save time. But then should something bad happen, a natural disaster or something like that, you can look really tone deaf if that thing accidentally publishes. So you just need to keep that in the back of your mind. If you're going to save the time on the automation, that you need to know what you've automated and be prepared to hit pause on anything if something drastic happens in your community.
Yeah. So let's jump into current program adjacent. So how do we actually start to expand those funding streams a little bit? And where are we on time?
6 minutes.
We got this. Okay, so we had actually, as we were chatting before this, we had actually talked about like making sure that if you are going to introduce a brand new funding stream, that it actually makes sense for your mission. And the big example that came to mind for us immediately was membership. Because a membership is not like, it seems like a fast, easy fundraising tool because you're like, oh, become a member today to support the organization. However, there's a lot of downfalls with that. And missions also, and also membership programs may not necessarily support or align with your mission generally. One of the areas that we really kind of thought was a big pitfall for this was we basically said, like, if you could put your mission on a bumper sticker, there's a chance that like you could possibly have a membership program because Emily was saying that it's an alignment of your values, correct?
Yeah, so for me, a good membership program says something. And, you know, I want to put on my website that I'm a member of NAACP Ventura County, that I'm a member of the Center for Nonprofit Leadership, that I'm a member of NABO Ventura County. So like I'm a member of the zoo, I'm a member of the Ventura Botanical Gardens. And so making statements that says like alignment with these organizations is alignment with my personal mission, vision, values versus, you know, there are organizations with truly incredible missions, you know, affordable housing and ending homelessness, you know, no child goes to sleep hungry, but it doesn't really fit with a membership organization. It's just not the right revenue stream for every organization. So if you're considering building a membership program, think about if people would be proud to put their membership on the website or be compelled to do that because it makes a statement about their personal values.
And I think the other pitfall with the membership model is that you're allowing people almost a cop out, right? Because they're checking a box already saying, hey, I supported the organization by giving them my $15 membership. But when in fact that person's actually capable of a $150 gift every single year very easily, but you're allowing them this really easy option to just kind of say like, oh, here's $15 instead of $150. So I think that's the other downfall with the membership model. It's great for like amassing a lot if you want to start to build out a list, like it's a good idea, but it's also not necessarily a sustainable revenue from the standpoint of you're creating a very missed opportunity. And also like, I don't want to necessarily be a member of a nonprofit that's ending homelessness. Cause to me, that's not like membership almost like has a benefit to it. And to me, there's not a personal benefit. It's a societal benefit for ending homelessness. And so from a membership model, we just want to make sure that like that's one that people tend to want to go to. The other one that people tend to want to go to is actually text to give. And I think that there is merit in text to give if you have a bunch of other programs that are already set up and your donors are already hearing from you on a regular basis. But if you're not communicating via email or via social media on a regular or creative basis, like suddenly having a text to give program is not going to kind of give you any solid benefit. And I know that they've evolved over the years, but they also tend to have a fairly high overhead associated with them as well. So those are a couple other things that we've just been seeing from clients that are coming to us trying to diversify their income streams.
It can work really well if you have incredible and deep name recognition in the community and a lot of like walk by traffic. So you know, if you've got a storefront that a lot of people walk by and it's like, hey, here's our existing program, you know, text to give. But again, it can be expensive and there are different kinds of text to give. And the cheaper ones are hard, where it actually just redirects you to a website and then you have to type a website and a credit card into your phone, and it's hard. And the ones that are easy that just tack it onto your cell phone bill are more expensive. So you have to, again, think about the ROI and the cost to complete and how easy are you making it for people to give you money, etc. Yeah, Kristiana,
yes,
you have 1 minute to tell me, how the heck can we sell this to our board?
Great question. And I think boards are often the hardest sell because they want to see things now. But boards also need to understand that in order for like long-term stability, like they need to start to put roots down now. And so I remember pitching, as silly as it sounds, I had pitched a social media program way back when to my board. And I was like, give me a year to show you that we're at least gaining some traction on here. And within a year, we had thousands and thousands of followers, on our social media account. We didn't necessarily have a revenue from it, but I was able to show that we are actually getting more names, more people listening, more people watching. And I think if you're able to show some sort of measurable ROI that is not dollar-based within your first couple of years, that's how I would pitch it. So just even if you're just getting more emails on your email list, if you're getting more people following you, just take like whatever that measurement is that is not a dollar measurement, use that as your pitch, because then you're showing that you're growing the network of potential supporters. And that's a really important thing for orgs to be doing right now.
So pitch it to the board as an investment in stability and sustainability. Remind them that it'll take time to blossom and bear fruit. I like developing a dashboard and which can report to the board those KPIs, those key performance indicators. So it's not necessarily just the dollar, it is those like, what are those early indicators that we're making progress? And you do need to have some deliverables and some deadlines. If this investment doesn't bear this much fruit in a year or 2 or 3 years, then we're going to try something else, because you certainly don't want to just keep pumping money into a program that's not actually working.
Yeah. But I think it's making sure that like it's not dollar-based to start, because as hard as that is to tell boards, like this will eventually give us money, but it's not going to be giving us money for a few years. However, it is going to give us people, and people give us money. And I think that because for better or worse, hint, a lot of the issues that we're currently dealing with is people panicking that their donor databases are drying up. So if you're able to show value that you're actually bringing people into your donor database right now, that's huge.
Yep. We've done it, my friend.
It was 25 minutes, as promised. If anybody has questions, you can drop them into the chat box and we will tackle them. If you don't have questions, you just got 25 minutes of us chatting about income stream diversification, and you're welcome to get on with your day, because we value your time. And so that's why we keep them to 25 minutes.
We have 3 more of these coming up. They're usually on a Wednesday every 2 weeks. We're going to talk more about high ROI fundraising. We're going to talk about your personal passion project, pay equity in the nonprofit sector. And we're going to talk about my personal passion project, which is how to maintain a hybrid or remote workforce that still feels connected.
Yeah. And also with the success of the Save the San Marcos Hills campaign, we actually have somebody from their little fundraising group who has offered to chat with us as well about their campaign. I'm really looking forward to that, because that is a campaign that was made up of small gifts. And I love the democratization of philanthropy, and I love what they did with that. So we're actually, we're going to keep these rolling, but again, 25 minutes a piece. But thank you guys so much for joining us today, because if we don't have any questions, we'll let you get on with your business. But send us feedback if it feels good to you. But otherwise, thank you so much for your time, effort, and energy today, and have a really good rest of your week, guys. Take good care.
See ya.